This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Today in the news, the 16 Plateau State House of Assembly members who lost their seat in a judgment by the appeal court were denied access to the House of Assembly yesterday. The sacked PDP members insist that the Supreme Court verdict, which affirmed Governor Caleb Mutfwang's victory as the duly elected governor of the state, should also be applicable to the state lawmakers that were sacked by the appellate court. Our guest this morning is Honorable Ibrahim Agbalak, one of the 16 who was elected to represent Bassa local government area. He joins us this morning. Honorable Agbalak, good morning and thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you for having me this morning. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. Sir, can you speak to us as to the events that took place yesterday when you and the rest of your team attempted to gain access to the House of Assembly?
Yeah. From your presentation, you said we are denied access yesterday. It's not true. We are inside the compound, and because of the court order that the speaker received, stopping the swearing, he came out and addressed us. We were not denied access to the compound yesterday. We were inside the compound. We didn't address the press yesterday.
Well, so there were reports that the police had fired tear gas at you and the 15 others.
No. That was not true. We saw that report, and some of us were even wondering. We went inside the compound, and we even addressed the journalists yesterday. Nobody denies us access. The speaker saw us, and he came out. He addressed the press, and he came and met us and said, because of the court order, he's saying that we are not going to have sitting. We have joined the sitting till further notice. That was what he said.
And before he made this statement, we're aware that he did recognize the 8 other lawmakers who were not affected, those who are not members of your party, so they weren't affected by the appeal court judgment. What are your expectations, considering that the law does say legislative seats, any appeal stops at the appeal court?
We have a strategy, and that was why we are there yesterday. We have a strategy that we want to keep it to our chest. We went there purposely to do one or two things to make sure that the swearing in of those 16 appeal court members not to be inaugurated yesterday. That was the game. And we went there, and the speaker recognized us. He came out. Even the 16 members of the appeal court, they were not present yesterday at the compound. We were the only 16 that were allowed to enter inside the premises yesterday.
Right. Honorable Agbalak, at this time,
yes.
with the situation of things, Bassa local government area is not represented, if we can put it that way, at the House of Assembly.
Yes,
is
that is a concern.
Right. So how deep does this concern go, and how quickly are you hoping that this will be resolved so that your constituency can continue to be represented in Plateau State?
Before I will respond to you, I want to say that this country will need to be serious so that we can move with other countries. What transpired in Plateau State was very, very wrong. The issue of pre-election matter is not the duty of the Court of Appeal, the tribunal, to entertain, and which the lawmakers, the federal lawmakers, Benny Lance and Burgos, wrote to the NJC that we don't trust this panel. They should be changed. Let me tell you that one dedicated panel was arranged for Plateau State as if there was something they were targeting. We cried on radio station, we cried on televisions that we need to have different panels. About 16 members of PDPs, 5 members of House of Reps, 3 members of 3 Senate cases, and even the governor under one panel. As today, our people are feeling that the injustice is too much on the Plateau. There was a political interest on the Plateau. If you hear the judgment, the content of the judgment of the Supreme Court, you know that it was a deliberate attempt. Because the judge says this judgment was fraudulent. Let me cut him verbatim. He said this judgment was fraudulent and abuse of court process. And secondly, the Court of Appeal does not have the jurisdiction to entertain the matter.
Honorable, if I may, you say you wrote to the NJC calling for a change. Did you get a response?
Yes, they respond. Honorable Bagos and Honorable Benny Ram, they wrote to the NJC that we don't have confidence in this panel, and which is our constitutional right to inform the NJC that this panel, this social judge, are not comfortable with him, and it is their duty to change the judge. They refuse to do it.
So,
and that is why our people are not happy. How can you win an election and someone that got only 2,000 votes will come and be representing the people, someone that got about 20 to 30,000 votes?
Honorable Agbalak, it's understandable the feeling, right, in the state and amongst your party members, especially after the Supreme Court issued its judgment. However, we can't change the fact that the law says for legislative seats, you can't appeal beyond the appeal court. Do you not think that perhaps it's time to just go back to the drawing table and prepare for 2027?
But do you know that in the Constitution that says when there is an injury, there must be a remedy? It is in our Constitution. We have been injured, we need a remedy.
So are you perhaps advocating that the law be changed to allow lawmakers or those who contest for legislative seats to allow them seek redress at the Supreme Court?
Yes, I'm telling you, it is from the Constitution that said when there is an injury, there must be a remedy. There must be a remedy. This is an injury to the Plateau man. This is an injury to Plateau people. So we are looking for the remedy. They should go inside and check where can they solve our issue. If the Supreme, the judgment of the Supreme Court is just like a law, it's a policy.
Right.
Yes. So if the Supreme Court says this is what's supposed to be done, and someone somewhere refuses to obey it, there must be punishment. That is our argument.
Honorable, with all this in mind, what is the next step for you and your colleagues?
Sorry, I've said that we have some issues that we want to do, and we are keeping it to our chest. We are going to approach the courts for interpretation, which is our right to do so. If the Constitution is saying that if you are injured, there must be a remedy for you. We are injured. We should look for the remedy in our Constitution and solve the problem.
Honorable, thank you very much for speaking with us this morning. Our guest, Honorable Ibrahim Agbalak, one of the 16 lawmakers who were sacked by the appeal court. He was elected to represent Basa local government, speaking to us on the state of affairs in Plateau State and the possible next steps for him and his colleagues. Do stay with us. The conversation continues on Now Breakfast.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Former spokesperson to Mr. Atiku Abubakar in the 2023 elections, Mr. Segun Showemi, is suing his party, the People's Democratic Party, over its failure to convene a National Executive Council meeting. Mr. Showemi's argument is that the party's leadership has refused to conduct mandatory quarterly meetings since the last elections. The PDP chieftain, who was an aspirant for the party ticket in the Ogun State governorship elections, emphasized that since the removal of the previous chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, NEC meetings have not been held in the last 1 year and 3 months, in contravention of extant laws regarding the conduct of party business. In a conversation with Radio Now, he starts by giving a sense of what he's asking the court.
The People's Democratic Party of Nigeria is a 25-year-old political institution registered by law and a creation of the law in this country. By the grace of God, the sacrifices of many of our previous compatriots, some of them living, some of them now gone, this party is their legacy that we also inherited as members from the beginning, to show that the Africans are matured enough to run democracy, especially with parties. We have been very lucky. We've had 16 years of national rule and quite a lot of other rules that has existed even till now, with governors, senators, House of Assembly reps, and what have you. A platform where a diverse number of Nigerians have used as a party where they've used as their platform to contest election, to articulate issues and do what they can in the participation of in democracy. For some time now, it has you all are Nigerians and you are aware that the party has been deviled by a lot of challenges, mostly self-contrived, self-inflicted within the system. And by virtue of our laws, because of the PDP, Article 31(2)(d), 4 and 5, we are a political party that is expected to have a couple of organs that manages the party, the highest of it being the National Executive Council. This requires that people are supposed to have these meetings quarterly. Yes, human nature can produce issues why it will not be quarterly, but there's no imagination that the NEC, which is the highest decision-making organ of a political party, will not be allowed to meet forever and ever. And all entries, all persuasions, all pleadings with the acting national chairman and his NWC to let this party concave the neck so that the highest organs of the party can take far-reaching decision on the future of the party has fallen on deaf ears. When it became clear to me that they feel that they can pocket the party and refuse the party to be able to ventilate and do its activities and play the role of opposition and contribute to democracy, I thought that, okay, enough is enough. It's time for me to drag them before the court because they are in contravention of not just the constitution of the PDP, but also they are in contravention of the Electoral Act. I've now gone to the court to ask the court to compel them or in the minimum restrain them in perpetuity from acting pending the determination of the case.
There are some unverified claims that point to financial reasons being behind the delay of the NEC. Is this something that you suspect to be the same?
The reality of the matter is that there are rules of engagement with the political party as that NEC is the platform that's supposed to be concave, where they will give a full account of the finances of the party, the election finances that they done, the post-election, and all the other ancillary election. As a matter of fact, by the constitution of our party, the powers of the NWC to constitute the groundwork and the rules of engagement for a political contest, especially Edo, Ondo, and some of the other ones, is as vested in the constitution, guaranteed and given to them by NEC. The NWC being almost like a managing director, the NEC being the board of trustees, but if you understand what I'm saying, I don't know how to put it. When in a bank, some people are the ones that are doing the everyday work, but there's also an overriding authority that says, okay, you draw your authority to do certain things from us. These are the things that are on the table. I have a feeling that financial issues, since they've not given us any report, that is one of them. Not able to give us how they draw authority to even go and participate in the few elections they participated, Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa. And I thought that they are taking this, they've allowed it to go on for too long, and it is time for us now to ask the court to compel them, since every other thing has fallen on deaf ears. Like you are well aware, the case is in court already. By the grace of God Almighty, it has been assigned. I have been reliably informed that it's been assigned, and therefore we cannot say too much on it, otherwise it will be subject.
Of course.
Exercise fundamental human rights, my right of association as a long-standing member of the party for all of the years this has been, for one who speaks on behalf of the party, for a governorship candidate and aspirant in the last election of the party, as a spokesperson of the party's presidential effort to say, no, we cannot allow a 25-year-old organization that will give the world the impression, that show to the world that Africans and indeed Nigerians can organize themselves, the opportunity to take everybody for the monkey. There are lots of disciplinary-related issues that are not long overdue. They've not been able to constitute it. Reconciliation committees, they've not been able to constitute it. They have reduced our party to a portmanteau party where they just keep it in their briefcase, bringing it out and doing whatever they want. And if we need to say enough, then I think it's right for us to go to court and say enough. Remember that we are all citizens of this country. We had the scenario with General Sani Abacha, who was head of state at that time. 5 parties said they were going to make, it was their sole ticket. And the people of Nigeria and God Almighty said, no, Nigeria is not going to be run that way. Multi-party democracy will be allowed. Parties will be allowed to fester. Political parties, I say all the time, is a safeguard to democracy. Once the parties don't manage and run themselves very well, it's almost a fait accompli for the citizens, because what are they going to be choosing for when the parties cannot run themselves well? Thank you.
So I want to take you back to July last year. A group called the Concerned PDP League, they issued a statement asking that the acting chairman, Umar Damagum, call a NEC meeting. And part of what they also wanted was that at this NEC meeting, there would be a confirmation of Mr. Damagum. There were also reports that the PDP governors, supposedly a significant number of them, do not seem to be interested in supporting Mr. Damagum. Have you received any calls, any sort of support, anybody that's standing behind your suit?
Thank you. A lot of members of the party have really been showing a lot of solidarity, commending my leadership skill, my bravery, my long-standing commitment to the party to rescue it. And I believe that, in fact, quite a lot of them have been asking me to allow them to file the right of joinder so that they can also join in, putting the energy into it. But I think that essentially what is important is that these matters will be put before the court, and the court will determine whether a political party created by law will be allowed to willfully disobey its own orders. And if they fail to comply with the orders of the court, then we must be able to show them that a court is bigger than an individual.
Mr. Show,
no matter how I place the people there are, the directive principles of status will be interpreted honestly, truthfully, and truthfully to tell them precisely that Nigerians have suffered enough with the unnecessary mismanagement of the general space, because political parties will not do what they're supposed to do, only to overburden the courts with their pre-election issues and pre-election issues. And to make sure that I contribute my own little quota to force the political party to live according to their own rules and make the Nigerian space a little bit less cumbersome and less, noisy, and reduce the burden on the court is why I've taken this reasonable, yeoman job on behalf of everybody that has been part of this party, especially the ones that have been here forever.
Mr. Shomi,
our leaders are amazed and they are happy about it.
Mr. Shomi, are you concerned about the optics that the Shoei, a member of the PDP, seeking for outside help to enforce rules that are supposed to guide in-house?
We're not seeking for outside help. I'm not like them that run to the president to be asking him to come and help them with cases. No. I'm going to the only institution that we know in the country, which is the independent judiciary, to come and give vent to the interpretation of the laws of our country, the laws of our party, the Electoral Act, and the 1999 Constitution as amended. Thank you very much.
That was Segun Shoemi, a chieftain of the People's Democratic Party, speaking to us on the lawsuit filed against his party because of its failure to contravene the National Executive Council meeting. That's our conversation this morning. It continues in just a moment. Do stay with us. Now Breakfast continues.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
The interview today focuses on forest reserves in Ondo State. They are front and center with implications of national significance. An investigative report by the Cable News accuses the Ondo State government of selling farmlands belonging to locals who have lived in the Oluwa Forest Reserve for generations. The private company that is said to have bought the land, SAO Agro Allied Services Limited, is accused of destroying cocoa farms worth an estimated 500 million naira to make way for their own produce. In this conversation, Radio Now's Nabila Usman spoke with Taiwo Adebulu, features and investigations editor at the Cable, who wrote the investigative report. He begins with what led him to the report in the first place.
I read a report about the farmers who were talking about the fact that they've been chased away from the forest by certain investors who were brought in by the state government. And they were talking about the fact that they couldn't plant food again and their livelihood is being taken away from them. So I contacted the farmers and they spoke to me about their plight, the things they were facing. So I decided to move into the forest with them, to interview them, then to see the situation of things. So for me, I think if people should be, if a particular group of people should be facing injustice, it should be farmers. And here we're talking about over close to 10,000 farmers in the forest reserve.
So let me take you back just a moment. You said that you went into the forest and you stayed with them for a bit while you were doing your interviews. What did you see?
I realized that the forest was quite depleting because the farmers had been in the forest for about 30 years, most of them. So they've been cultivating cocoa plantations in the forest. And aside cocoa, they'll be cultivating palm trees, they'll be cultivating cola nuts and other cash crops and food crops. So they've been there for a long time, and they have a kind of camps. They have camps in the big forest. It was a big forest because the forest is located about 20 minutes away from Ore in Ondo State. So from Ore to that particular forest, you're going to drive on a motorcycle for about 2 hours. Just from the express road, from the Benin Express Road, Benin Shagamu Express Road to the forest reserve, you're going to drive for about 2 hours inside the forest. So they have their camps, they have their children, they have their wives. So it's a complete community inside the forest reserve. So they've been planting food inside that forest for about 30 years. And at one point in time, the government decided to give them a quick notice that they had to leave the forest. So when I got to the forest, I realized that it was a complete community. There were children that were actually born inside that particular forest who started farming on their own. So they had a complete life there. So I now realized that leaving that particular place could be a kind of challenge for them because that's where they have their whole life. And that's where they call a home. Because they had to leave some of because they are not actually indigenous to that particular forest. They came from different communities just to look for where to farm and produce food. So it was a big community, different camps in different places, planting a lot of food. Then we had investors who later came in to destroy their cocoa plantations and plant palm trees instead because they were trying to, they were involved in this CBN initiative, an initiative by the Central Bank of Nigeria to plant palm trees. So they had to send away the farmers just to plant palm trees. So when I got there, one of the things I just knew was because it was that it was a big community, a community that couldn't just leave that particular place at that point in time.
So you talk about the state government. In your report, you point out that the state government at some point actually reached out to these farmers. This was before the farm or the land was given to this private investor. Let's talk about that. I know that you reached out to the Ondo state government to ask for a reaction. What did you find out from them, their own side of the conversation?
Now, as of the time the state government reached out to them, the state government did not specifically tell them that they were going to quit the forest at that point in time. The state government told them that they wanted to know where they were because they didn't know where all the farmers in the states were at that particular point in time. So the farmers told the state government that they were inside the Oluwa Forest Reserve, and the state told them to come and register to become officially recognized in the state. So they paid to be registered. They paid for the first time, they paid for the second time, and they paid for the third time. Then again, the state told them to start paying taxes for using the land because, as you know, the state owns the land. So they started paying taxes every year, about 6 million naira to the state government. And at that point in time, the state government was appreciating them for producing this kind of quality cocoa because according to the data in that particular story, Ondo State produces one of the best quality cocoa in the country. So the state government appreciated them for producing such cocoa, but at that point in time that they had a conversation with the state government, they were not told that they were going to quit the forest. But it was a time that the governor then was going for a re-election. So there was no way he was going to tell the farmer. In fact, he told the farmers that if they voted for him, that there were some things that I was going to do for them, that I was going to take their name to the National Assembly to become federally registered farmers. So they had no inkling that they were going to give them a quick notice out of the forest. So they were not actually communicated about the quick notice. Not until after the election, when the governor got re-elected, that some people just came into the forest with excavators and all of that tools to tell them that the state government has given us this particular land to plant palm trees. So they were somehow surprised because there was no particular time that the government told them that they would be given a quick notice. Before, they only told them that they wanted to know them, they wanted to see them, and the government surveyed the land and collected taxes from them for using that particular forest reserve.
So this is essentially a situation where the cocoa farmers lost their cocoa, but also lost their farmlands. And this is a little while ago, because I know the CBN intervention began in 2019 was when it was first announced, and then we've seen it sort of develop. What's the state of the farmers today? Do you know?
Yes, it's been terrible for the farmers, although they've not completely left the forest reserve, because to them, that is the only place they call a home. For so many of them, their forests, their farms have been totally graded. So they have no means of livelihood again. And if you know something about cocoa, cocoa is a cash crop that may take up to 4 or 5 years before you can get a seedling or a pod out of it. So a farmer needs to nurture that particular plant until 5 years before he gets to harvest from it. So at that particular point in time, when you now grade a cocoa farm, because normally when you have a cocoa farm, you are supposed to even transfer that cocoa farm from one generation to the other. So your 10th generation can continue to profit from that particular farm. So when their farms were graded, some of them had to leave the forest to the city to start looking for menial jobs. Some of them had to leave the forest to the city to start maybe begging. And some of them had to become laborers to some of their colleagues whose farms had not been graded yet. Now, this is an ongoing conflict. It started about 3 years ago, but it is still ongoing because there are some farms that have not been graded by the agro investors. It is an expansive forest. So for those whose farms have not been graded by the agro investors, they are still staying on the farm and they are still helping other farmers whose farmlands have been destroyed. So it's a situation where they have nothing to go because they have children to feed. They don't have a life outside the forest. So some of them are staying in the forest just beside the agro investors. But every day, the agro investor moves from one farm to the other. So no one knows whose farm is going to be the next to be graded. So every day they live in fear. Every day they live to face the battle for survival that they won't leave that particular location for the agro investor. So that is the current situation of things.
So I want to talk about the private investor that you implicate in your report, which is the SAO Agro Allied Company. You point out that this is a company that's the lead investor in the Ondo State, the Ondo Special Agro Processing Zone, something that is a company that's supported, or the zone itself being supported by the African Development Bank. These are big names. We're talking about a state government involved, a big private investor. You also have, of course, the multinational bank here. What has the response been? Sorry?
And the central bank is also involved because the agro investor is actually executing the CBN initiative.
Exactly. So in all of this, since you published your report, what has the response been?
It's been zero. They can't say anything because the issue, they may think that not responding is because the issue is still in court. Now, I said initially that this is an ongoing conflict. It has not ended. The matter is still in court. The matter between the farmers and the agro investor and the state government is still in court. So the fact that the matter is still in court and the court has issued an injunction for the agro investor to stop further destruction of those cocoa plantations has not stopped the agro investor from leaving the farm or from further spreading its tentacles across the forest. So I'm surprised with the fact that they didn't give any reaction. The state government has not reacted. Now, on the part of the state government, I understand the fact that it was the past administration of late Governor Akeredolu that was involved in the process. But the current governor was a deputy governor during that particular administration, and he should have been informed about what was going on between the farmers, the state government, and the agro investor. So at the moment, they have not said anything, and I've reached out to them. But it's quite unfortunate that the farmers still live in fear, and the agro investor is still in the forest, grading more cocoa farms and planting more palm trees.
So, I mean, there's a part where you talk about our forest, because this is something that's happening in a forest reserve, right? Which has a whole set of rules around how land there is used in the first place. You note the depletion of forest reserves or forest areas in the Southwest, especially, right? No, Ondo State in particular, that has lost what, almost a quarter, I believe, of the
forest reserves.
Exactly. So I know that the federal government does not run forest reserves. This is something under the purview of the state. However, forests are still very much under the Federal Ministry of Environment. It's all part of their purview. What do you expect to hear from the government in this case? Because beyond the issue with the smallholder farmers, you also have this critical matter where we're losing a natural resource.
Yes, for me, I think the first reaction should come from the state government when that story was published, because it sends a wrong message to the international community that some of the cocoa that we do export to Europe are actually produced in the forest reserve, because a forest reserve is quite important, especially to the Western world and to environmentalists and to conservationists. It helps in protecting the ecosystem, and it's important in fighting the climate change. So when you are producing cocoa, or you are doing a kind of industrial cultivation of palm trees, a federal government initiative in a forest reserve, it means it will be very, very hard for you to sell your agricultural product outside the country. And at the moment, we are talking about diversification of the economy. At the moment, cocoa is the second, maybe forex, agriculture is the second forex earner in the country after crude oil. So now, when the crude oil is drying up, and in fact, at the moment, we are having issues with foreign exchange income, because the crude oil sales is no longer as huge as before. And agriculture has been the major driver of that particular income from abroad. So when the Western world realizes that most of your agricultural products are coming from a forest reserve, there is no way that they're going to buy our agricultural products. There is no way they're going to buy cocoa or palm oil from a forest reserve, because a forest reserve is meant to be protected. A forest reserve it's a place that protects the environment. So I expect the state government to come up with a reaction immediately, especially to stop the agro investor from further planting palm trees, further engaging in industrial cultivation of palm trees in the forest, then to regulate the farmers in the forest, because there is no way you can chase those farmers away, having been there for over 30 years and producing food for the state. Then again, I do expect the CBN to start talking about a regulation of its palm oil initiative, because there are other places where you can plant palm trees aside the forest reserve. Because for me, I do not think the CBN is aware of the fact that its initiative is being executed in a forest reserve, because it's practically illegal. It's unheard of. You don't have an industrial cultivation of palm tree in a forest reserve. You are going to deplete the forest, because the forest is already being depleted with the activity of poachers, or let me say loggers, illegal loggers in the forest. So the forest is already depleted and depressed. So for you to now initiate, or for you to now execute a central bank scheme in the forest reserve, it is unheard of. So at the moment, I expect the CBN to react and regulate that particular initiative, because it does not meet a kind of international standard.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM.